Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'll be giving my commemorative speech today. I will today reflect on probably the strongest person I've ever met in my life and the biggest inspiration I think anyone could ever hope to be around, which is my mother. Now, first things first, I'd like to show my audience. Thank you. So today I will be commemorating my mother, Dolores Gavat Quinano, and saying how she was this beacon that taught me about hope, faith, and perseverance. My mother, Dolores, was born in the Philippines way back in the late 60s. She was a daughter of three boys, and she was often given the short end of the stick. And my grandfather rather, took direction with his sons rather than with her. My mother was very poor. She didn't get much from her father, and she had to learn to sustain herself in the Philippines. Now, during this time, she lived in a very impoverished area that was torn down and has not been gentrified. It was a poor housing area, and she pretty much barely had any clothes or money. She pretty much would try to just find a way to live any day she could, and one day she stumbled upon a church. And going to this church, she later learned about fate and the power and believing in people, and my mother was in a state of giving up. So she used this idea, which she learned, to do everything she can and to be hopeful for everything, anyone. And she would always help someone whenever they were in need, as she was never helped ever, except for this particular time. So every time Mother went to do something for herself, like going to America to become a nurse, she was met with much triumph and tragedy, because mostly around this time, my family was expecting her to pay for them and take care of them more or less. And also, she had to make the whole goal of leaving out here to the America as an immigrant, which was very difficult around the late 80s to the 70s. And then eventually she succeeded. It was an incredible accomplishment. Then eventually she had met a man who would later become my father. And around the day she learned I was pregnant with her, she had learned that my father was married. And she kind of felt horrible, and he just abandoned her. My mother was so distraught mentally by this, and she had to learn to raise me in a whole new country, barely learning English and trying to go around it, living this way. So as she did this, she eventually had me and moved to New York, and she met a bunch of people that was nice to her. Now, every time she did something good, something bad happened, because she had to raise me by herself, being both my mother and my father, and she also had to donate money to her family all the way back then. And by doing this, she had to question if she wanted to be a mother, and this kickstarted this whole depression she had that battled and plagued her for her whole life. I felt like I was a plague to her, and I took an aspect of her time, but she kept giving and giving, giving, and trying to raise me. And today, I would not be who I am if not seeing through her pain, and I thank you all for your time and for her existence.